Thank you so much, Chris, and really appreciate and welcoming the conversation today. Um, Very interested in terms of getting your feedback, and they really are important conversations to see what resonates with you, where you might have gone down a rabbit hole, and where are the nuances in terms of building this in a way that resonates with the internal campus. Janica and I would like to thank the other members of the working group in terms of their diverse expertise in terms of discussions that we've had to date. The team members on the working group were Jim DeWald, the Dean of Haskayne School of Business, Kate Hamilton, Executive Director and Chief of Staff, Office of the President, Steve Larter, Associate Vice President, Research Innovation, Andrea Morris, Associate Vice President, Development and Chief Development Officer, Buffy St. Amand, Director of Strategic Projects and Global Initiatives at University of Calgary International, Penny Werthner, Dean, Faculty of Kinesiology, and John Wilson, President and CEO of Innovate Calgary. If we can go to the next slide, see if I can, no, I don't have the access. Thank you. In terms of the three commitments, I think this is really a critical piece that has to be central in our conversations about community partnerships. It's fundamental in terms of the principles that we've proposed, and to see whether we've captured it, is, to move in a way that allows us to continue in the path in a good way. One that is ethical and positive for all individuals to flourish in our society, both on and beyond our campus. And so one of the things that will be really interesting is to see whether we need to make that more explicit or implicit in our statements in these three kind of commitments at the institutional level. As you know, I'm going to echo Chris. The working group is really excited to hear the feedback and some of the difficult questions that that we hope that you're going to pose to us today, in terms of making sure that we're getting this right. It's such a critical component for the way we want the university to move forward with the hundreds of partnerships that exist. So we really are looking to see what resonates with you, what needs more thought or nuance, or what we actually have to fundamentally change. At the heart of these discussions, we really are looking at why are partnerships important for the university and for our communities, and what are the core principles, or what I would say the values that underpin the way in which we work alongside our communities through a shared commitments towards these grand challenge and complex problems that we're facing in our times. It was interesting, Janica and I, we and the working group, this conversation doesn't start with money. And so we really want to actually make that really direct and explicit. When you look at the core principles and the values in our conversations, what we're looking at is how we work together, with our various groups to address these issues that are facing us as a society and as humanity. It's the values and principles that are going to be the strong foundation for how we think about the nature of our community partnerships, the range of partnerships that we have in terms of our research, in terms of our programming, in terms of our student experience, the way in which we share our expertise. You'll see on the website, we're starting with the assumption that you were able to look at the document prior to the conversation. Janica and I are trying to give at least the high level conversations in the points and the process and the progression of our thinking. And so we're kind of starting with the assumption that you had taken a look, but just to hope that we can spend more time in the deliberations and the conversations as possible. And if we can just skip this slide, one of the things, and along with the three commitments that, in terms of the table stakes, there are three kind of groups that we were thinking of, particularly in terms of that were a thread woven into all of our conversations. And one is, what is it that benefits for students for community partnerships? What are the ways that we can kind of create better quality learning experiences for our students? What are more authentic experiential learning opportunities? How do we ensure the well-being of our students while they're on campus? What are the enhanced research opportunities that might be afforded in our community partnerships? And the opportunities or enhanced opportunities to collaborate with key thought leaders, both internally and externally in our communities. For our faculty, what was kind of an underpinning thread when we were thinking about some of the core principles is to see where there are partnership opportunities, where we can elevate the good work that we are already doing on our campus. And so we really wanted to say is, we're doing some phenomenal things on our campus. Are there ways that we can support, elevate, or enhance the good work that you're already doing? And also there was kind of a thrust in terms of recognizing where there's a collective strength in our work across the traditional disciplinary boundaries, both within our campus and beyond our campus. So recognizing kind of that multiple nuanced networks that we have. For our broader community, we really wanted to ensure that we're working alongside our community partners, and also an acknowledgement that there is shared expertise, both externally in our campuses, and a shared commitment in many of the things that we're all grappling with in our different respective fields and areas of study, to some of the fundamental challenges of today. So those were, as we were having significant kind of debate and conversations, those were the ways in which is saying, part of the rationale for community partnerships was based in terms of enhancing these kind of areas in a more cohesive and collective way. So at this point, I'm going to pass it on to Janica just to talk us through some of the process.
Thanks, Dan, and great to see all of you. I mean, there's quite a bit of numbers in the Congress, and if you really look at over the last several years with the University of Calgary, I mean, I've developed and implemented many partnerships that benefited students, faculty, staff, and we have some great stories. I mean, great stories from every single faculty. Many units, multi-units actually collaborating and develop those relationships. Like, we have partnerships that benefited the students with many entities to enhance student experience, experiential learning opportunities, like the sustainable internship program that in engineering with many industrial companies, local, international. Improving international student experience and learning experiences, let's say for Faculty of Arts, with partnering with many other universities, worldwide. The recent example is that when we build an exclusive partnership with MITAS to send 600 students abroad, bringing 300 students here for Global Link, which actually would go from undergraduate, graduate, postdoc. So a number of opportunities. Our faculties and faculty members, the key success is bottom up. How did they build bottom up partnership that actually builds solid and purposeful partnership that, whether it's smaller, medium, large, doesn't matter the size, that we do it with companies, nonprofit organizations, and various other entities that we have done it for academic and research purposes. I'll bring an example from Diane's faculty. Berkman School of Education had this doctoral workshop network partnership with a number of universities in Canada and overseas, which was brilliant. And then there was a lot of benefit to students and the faculty. We have a strong partnership with communities, like the City of Calgary. The Urban Alliance is one example that includes many stakeholders and benefiting our broader Calgary community. If you look at the partnerships, and they are more and more seen as a key way to tackle complicated and complex problems we face as a society. We are blessed to have a working committee with many great champions who had already built thriving partnerships in multiple domains of our university. So this is a combination of ideas that we work through our committee, and we are presenting to get your opinion, because the key thing is consultations, listening to see how we get the right approach going forward. As we undertook this task, right, this is what we have done as a team in terms of we explored many local, national, and international examples. We look at success stories, challenges, and risks. We strongly felt that conceptualizing the rationale for purposeful mega partnership is really critical to ensure that the broader campus community, that we bring the broader campus community into that actually, and then they will be with us, going forward. And I think that's the key element that we are always talking about. Then what we did was we came up with a definition for mega partnership, right? So we want to make sure that during the last 2 months, we looked at the angles of why partnerships are essential, how partnerships are built, and what transpired the partnerships. And then I thought, because there's lots of partnerships in different scales, as I said, the small, medium, large, and we want to come up with a unique definition of mega partnership to say that it's very important for the University of Calgary to build a smaller number of purposeful and focused mega partnerships. Then we thought, to build that, what is the mega partnership means? And we came up with a one critical fundamental concept, which I'll take it through, with 4 principles and a criteria. How do we pick them? I can probably come up with 15 ideas. This community can come up with lots of ideas. So how do you really pick them? And so, because we have to have that criteria. And then we look at in terms of other consultations, and we tested with some groups in the campus about how those things would apply to these principles. And then we also look at some of the other examples from around the world that we can see as good examples. So our rationale is very clear and compelling. Partnerships are absolutely essential. Why? To address wicked problems like improving maternal and child health issues in Africa, to participate in local and regional economic development. If you take an example like Urban Alliance or the Team Calgary with Calgary Economic Development and many other organizations, to play on the global stage, the multi-million-dollar partnership developed with Energy and Mexico, to enhance student experience and opportunities. For example, whether it's a joint JD program in law with University of Houston, or collaborative degree program with science, for example, Lancaster University in UK, or an internship program with companies in Toronto and New Delhi. So to engage with broader innovation ecosystem, if you take a concussion research group from kinesiology and with other faculties that they are doing this wonderful work, and then so we also had a committee before that, which we look at this partnership, where we looked at different partnership types exist at the university, anywhere from individual level to program specific to faculty, multi-unit, institutional, and multi-integrated, right? And we thought would be good to focus on the institutional and fully integrated types, and then came up with definition that you can see actually on the slide about what do we mean by mega partnership, right? So this is our definition for mega partnership. So taking that mega partnership, we went a little bit further. We want to actually look at and say, we came up with one fundamental concept, right? One fundamental concept, which is a trusted partners. I can attest this one, and the provost, Drew Marshall, I don't know whether she's in the audience, would agree that the concept of trusted partners was the key success when we built the mega partnership in energy with the Ministry of Energy from Mexico. And then we look at 4 core principles. You can see that: high impact, uniquely positioned, exceptional initiatives, and sustainable long and short and long term. Then we look at 3-factor criteria to assess the areas of focus to develop mega partnerships. It needs to be aligned with academic and research plans and other plans and strategies. Needs to be transdisciplinary. I mean, you listen to the transdisciplinary work that was presented yesterday. And then also we need to look at desired outcomes and impacts. So if you look at what is a trusted partner, right? And so these are the points that we identified. We believe that a trusted partner is to commit for mutual beneficial things. We need to each other from that angle. We need to secure commitment from all stakeholders involved with us and the external partner. It needs to be reliable, aligned, and of course, create trust anywhere from inception to the completion. And that's the key thing. It's not about only at the beginning. It needs to continue. It needs to embrace the diversity and ensure equity, right? We need to follow through what we said that we will do, right? Continuation of what we agreed, and then of course, opportunity to maximize our impact on society. If I take it further and elaborate this one, let's put our hat from the University of Calgary. How do we look at internal lens about our external partner, right? University of Calgary recognizes and values the engagement and expertise of the partner. We have people, we have resources, We need to have a functional management structure to support those mega partnerships. We have to have a clear and transparent core principles, areas of focus, alignment, and a criteria in selecting them as well. From the external perspective, they also need to recognize and value our expertise and the strategic importance and shared interests, and of course, needs to align with the University of Calgary's mission and values. Adhere to our policies and procedures, like, for example, code of conduct, collective agreement, intellectual property policy, and things like that are really critical for us to see. So with that, we came up with 4 core principles for mega partnerships, and my energetic co-partner is going to co-chair will take you through and explain the 4 core principles. Over to you, Dan.
All right, thank you, Janica. And if you can go to the next slide. You know, one of the things that we're really looking at is the diversity of the kinds of partnerships that we have across campus. And so we weren't just looking at from a research lens, because we know that many of our partnerships are related to our programs. It might be in terms of the quality of the conditions for a sense of belonging or inclusion for our students on campus. And so, you know, broadly speaking, what we're trying to do, and this is where we'd really appreciate your advice, because I think we had significant conversations, is whether the principles are overarching enough to to reflect the diversity of the kinds of partnerships that we currently have on our campus and with our various community leaders and partners, but also be discerning so that, you know, for those partnerships that we really see potential, whether this would be sufficient in terms of the criteria or a lens through which we could look at. The first one that we looked at is, you know, what do we mean by high impact? And so you can see the kind of the indicators in terms of, you know, the complicated and complex challenges, leveraging complementary strengths, you know, multifaceted, enhancing the society's quality of life, creating ecosystems, impact of a quality of student experience, you know, potential for systemic change and addressing sustainable development goals. You know, one of the things, and I'll use my own faculty, and hopefully my colleagues don't disagree, like there are many partnerships that we have, and I'll use education example. We have incredible number of partnerships that we have with school districts, you know, locally, regionally, and across Canada, particularly for our programmatic needs, for their professional development needs, and so forth. But we wouldn't necessarily think that we need to fundamentally leverage that particular partnership on a grand global scale. They're really meaningful and they exist for a particular reason. But would this be a criteria for a mega partnership? Well, probably not, because those partnerships exist for a different reason. And so we're trying to make those discernments in that regard. So we'll go to the next slide in terms of exceptional initiatives, and someone can hit the next button. Thanks. Okay, so in terms of uniquely positioned, you know, looking in terms of making substantive and meaningful change, one of the things that we're looking at is terms of capacity, in terms of, do we already have a critical mass of thought leaders on our campus, you know, who can take the risk or engage in more complex challenges, or does it need to be aspirational in nature? So we had a lot of debate in terms of current capacity and future capacity, whether we really had seen kind of a proven track record of expertise at a foundational level. Whether there's a need or a potential for scalability on a national or a global scale. You know, looking at that kind of demonstrated excellence, and, you know, and that's a, you know, kind of a loaded term, and it's interesting, you know, if you were to pull the threads of, well, what would excellence look like? And so, you know, in terms of, again, we grappled in terms of, depending on the nature of partnership, excellence might look in different ways. You know, a research excellence would look like that, as opposed to maybe a mental health strategy or an Indigenous strategy in terms of serving the community needs. And so those were kind of interesting nuances. Again, is it too vague so it's unhelpful, or, you know, if we get too specific, are we being exclusive in nature? And then the organizational capacity, both internally and externally. Next slide. Exceptional initiatives. You know, what we were really trying to capture here is, you know, those ideas that spark something really exciting with so much potential, or that really is in the public consciousness in terms of creating networks or ecosystems. So where's the potential for multiple collaborative networks, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary networks? Is there a geographical advantage? Is there something about Alberta being in terms of agricultural hub, or in a cattle ranching area, or the equestrian elements? Is it because we're close to the mountains? Is it because of the nature of the governance or political structures? So, we were trying to play off in terms of, is there something interesting that Calgary naturally might have an advantage just because of its current location? It's not the sole thing, but it was an interesting factor that might be a consideration in terms of really shooting for the stars. So we were really trying to grapple with, those exceptional initiatives in terms of both that captivated and resonated and saw the kind of the integrated networks and ecosystems. Next slide, please. Sustainability, very interesting. One of the things that we were looking at is can we meet the ongoing challenges, with a reasonable likelihood of success? There are some partnerships that serve a purpose, and it might be resolvable within a 3 to 5 year time period, and that's interesting, and they're valuable and meaningful. So we keep on saying this because we don't want to undermine the current partnerships. But when we look at these kind of mega partnerships, or the ability to leverage some of it, where are those ongoing challenges or the complexity of issues? So, when we we can all think of different ideas, and these are illustrative. They're not the ones that, these thou shalt be the ones. But we thought, well, what would climate change look like? Sustainable energy sources, reconciliation, looking at, different really complex challenges that are ongoing. So, we played off the ideas in terms of, is there something that really requires kind of a long-term vision and have the organizational capacity? So when we started, Janica alluded to, we just played out just to see, even as a beginning test, what were some of the barriers or challenges where we really need to provide extra supports, resources, central, time and space for people to really flourish, to really provide a vibrant, sustainable partnership, organizational structure. So it really is in terms of what's the potential for growth in those areas.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. So yeah, so you see that I'm going to take you back. So remember, we talk about framework, fundamental concept, preconditions for a fundamental concept. We talk about 4 core principles. How do we really pick an area? How do we really know, what are those mega partnerships? And that's where we thought it would be really good for us to look at these 3 elements here. Number 1, they must be aligned to academic and/or research plan, and many others. For example, a project could have a clear link to Indigenous strategy, to EDI policy, to a global engagement plan. And also maybe it linked to, if I take a research project, could be linked to energy and maybe linked to something else. So we need to really see that needs to be really linked with our strategies and plans. But don't forget faculty plans too. Faculties have each of their priorities and areas and how that would link as well. So it needs to be really, we need to get big yes, for plans, strategies, and faculty plans. I think that's one thing. Second one, we heard the transdisciplinary work yesterday. It's brilliant. Looking at innovative of coming up with that. But we're also saying, take away the silo environment. Great ideas can be brought when we get together. We look at in a big scale. We looked at how we can partnership with each other. We take engineering, science, arts, and social work together. We could probably develop some really wonderful opportunities, and we encourage that going forward. If you're talking about mega partnership, it needs to be big. It needs to be collaborative. The last one, of course, aligned with desired outcomes and impacts, because it could be enhancing reputation, elevate student experience, ensuring community engagement, right? It's very, very important, and have impacts like betterment of humanity, with possible advancing new thinking, ideas, and innovation. So these are 3 things that needs to look at in a detailed way. So in terms of path forward, what's our path forward? Consultation is very, very essential in assessing the culture and ethos of the proposed initiative mega partnership. I'm going to put my own hat. Coming from engineering with project management expertise, consultations is very critical. We need to make sure we need to bring the right stakeholders and bring their ideas forward, because we are going for large initiatives, and that's very, very critical. So Dan and I would love to hear, and our communities love to hear your comments, your feedback, your suggestions, your barriers, opportunities, and all that stuff. But in terms of what we will do is we will actually analyze your feedback. We want to listen to you very carefully, analyze the consultations and the feedback. It would be really great for us to, in our opinion, to do an environmental scan of the current mega partnerships in the campus. Maybe there's a potential mega partnerships across the campus. And then we'll think about an implementation strategy, right? How are we going to do that? I mean, there are a number of things. I mean, interacting with other entities like, Industrial Liaison Office that was already built, established to Innovate Calgary. The transdisciplinary working group is another one. And so there are many of those that are there. And then the last one is, of course, we want to develop a governance structure for decision making at the executive leadership team to identify mega partnerships and the relevant areas of focus, looking at all these aspects of go through focus. So since we love to hear your feedback, we have some questions for you. That is in the report, but we want to actually say to you that we want to say to hear from you about how you see the definition of mega partnerships, fundamental concept of trusted partnerships, preconditions, and then also how can we refine the core principles to articulate and discern and practical purposeful real life challenges. How will we leverage our current capacity to develop mega partnerships to bring a more meaningful impact to our communities and society? What are the barriers that currently exist? And what do you think of the process and should be identified mega partnerships? So I'm going to just remind everybody that, we have questions and then the principles of charity. But since I have built some partnerships with the construction industry, I just brought my hard hat just in case, and then I'll be ready to respond to your questions. Thank you very much.